topics before. I just want you to know I added some additional detail as to what the roles are for each person. We have program managers. Sometimes they're called capture managers, depending on who you're talking to. They're guiding the overall team, both internally and externally. They're also focused on any changes that are happening with the customer, any changes that are happening with subcontractors or competitors. From an internal perspective, they're making sure the solution gets developed and any kind of internal management reviews. The salesperson is responsible for gathering both customer data, plus they're the ones that have all the outreach to all the subcontractors, so they are able to help explain to the proposal team what the customer's all about. Some companies sort of have somebody that's in marketing that focuses on long-term relationships with an agency, like, you know, I'm the NIH marketing person, and then when a specific deal comes out, somebody gets assigned to do that specific deal. Obviously, we're talking small companies here, so you're going to be sharing that role with other functions in your organization. Some of the things that the proposal manager does, their ultimate goal is to develop a compliant, responsive proposal that's delivered on time. So they're setting deadlines. This is where project management skills would really come in for setting a schedule for the proposal team. They put together assignment sheets for each writer to say this is what you're going to write about. Because if you give a technical person, you know, to write about modems, they could write 20 pages about modems because that's what they live, breathe, eat, and sleep. But you want to make sure you limit them because source selection doesn't even mention modems. So you just want to make sure you cover it. So you're telling people how many pages they have, how you're going to handle writing and editing. Because this ends up being an integrated document, it's a really good idea to have templates in place that you give to writers so that they're writing according to a certain template, so that when you get all the data back in, you can put it together easily. The contracts manager is really responsible for the prime contract, so they want to assess risk, teams, or terms, conditions, and they negotiate the prime contract. Some of that prime contract terms and conditions, some of them will get flowed down to subcontracts with your individual suppliers because you want to make sure you're protected. You don't want you, as a prime, to commit to the government to do something when you're not going to be responsible for doing it, your sub is. So you want to make sure that the requirements and the terms and conditions flow down to that subcontractor so that if they don't perform, it's going to impact, you'll be able to have the legal ramifications to be able to hold their feet to the fire, right? So that's why you want to make sure that's what they do. Okay, we're going to talk about what each of these do in a second. Okay, so one of the first things the proposal manager will do is they'll put together a B&P budget, and these are the types of things that are included in a bid and proposal budget. And again, project management skills to help figure out what this project timeline is really helpful in doing. Another technique that companies use is something called a storyboard. And again, I'm not trying to kill you with over information, but storyboards, what they're designed to do is to give you like sort of a 2-page picture of each section of your proposal. And so the proposal manager will put in what key marketing messages there should be, who the name of the writer is, what RFP requirements should be addressed, how many pages you have to get that done, what are the graphics you're going to put in for that section, and they will do the first part of the storyboard. And they go through the entire RFP and put together something called a compliance checklist. And the compliance checklist is basically, have we addressed every requirement? And so here's the requirement number, and here's who it's assigned to make sure that every requirement is addressed. So they give this out to the writers. This is the information they give to the writers. They also give them a writing template that basically shows what font are we all going to be using. You know, what's the spacing that we're all going to use. How are we going to handle text type, graphics, callouts, section headings. Writing standards. You know, you should always write in the active voice. You know, John installed the modem, not the modem was installed by John. Because you want to make it very clear to the government who's doing what. what are you going to call yourselves? You know, what is it, the Blue Wolf Team, or is it Blue Wolf, or is it some other name? The other thing they do is they come up with this milestone schedule. And these are the kinds of things you put on a milestone schedule. When did you receive the RFP? When do you anticipate receiving the RFP? When do you anticipate getting the B&P budget created? When is a bid decision going to be made? Because as we talked yesterday, when the bid decision is made, that's what triggers the ability to spend this money to do these things. When are your draft subcontracts going to be completed? When's your proposal template conventions? When are they going to be established? When are these writers packages that I just talked about going to be disseminated? What's your compliance matrix? When's that going to get created? When are you going to tell your writers that the storyboards are due? So after the proposal manager comes up with that initial information, the proposal writer just outlines and puts in the graphics of what's going to be included. And the value of this process is when you've got each proposal section sort of summarized at the 2-page level, you can put them all up on the wall. And then your proposal team can walk through and very quickly read what everybody's including in their proposal section. And when they read what's in each proposal section, they realize that, oh, what I'm putting in my proposal section conflicts with what you're putting in your, so they start to realize the disconnects, they start to realize other things that should be discussed. And it's better to do this at the storyboard level, because when you actually write your proposal sections, who's going to, you know, who's time to read through 10 or 12 pages, right? It's better to just multiply times 10 writers, you know, like 120. When these proposals get really big, this is a useful process. Now, if you're just doing a quick and easy proposal, don't even think about storyboards. It's a waste of your time. But that's the value of a storyboard. When is the solution going to be finalized? When are you going to negotiate some contracts? When is the first draft due? When's the final copy due for each of the sections? When are you going to conduct your reviews? And the final executive sign-off before it goes over to the government. So those are the kinds of things that should be on a proposal milestone chart. Also, as you're going through this, there's a point in time where you say, okay, we're going to freeze the solution as of today. But inevitably, something comes up tomorrow that causes a problem here. So anytime you change part of the solution, there's this ripple effect. You have to change your pricing. You have to get a subcontract in place with the new company. You have to make sure that what you're saying about that company in your proposal has been replaced by the new company. So there's just lots of ripple effects when you have any kind of change. While you're working to manage change on your proposal side, the government is also busy answering all those questions that contractors put in. And those questions will necessitate changes to the RFP document. So they'll be issuing updates to the RFP. And they'll be posted on FedBizOpps. So somebody needs to stay tuned in to FedBizOpps to see what these changes are and to make sure that the right people on your proposal team know that their section has been changed. Because if you just leave it up to, okay, everybody check FedBizOpps every day and make sure there are no changes to your section, it doesn't happen, and then you end up submitting a non-compliant proposal. Then you do the proposal print. Some agencies will just accept it electronically, like GSA. Some require you to send copies in. They have to be there at a certain date and time. So, you know, you either drive it to the location or you FedEx it, but you give yourself enough time that in case they didn't get it, you can still FedEx another copy and it'll get there in time. So you want to protect yourself from that. It gets delivered, and then if you can submit it electronically, obviously that's the easiest. So those are the things that the proposal manager does at the high level. So they're, like what they do on a day-to-day basis is that they manage the entire proposal process. You will see proposal managers having daily check-ins with their team because they want to make sure everything's rolling. What the proposal manager is really doing with these daily meetings is if contract says, I can't enter into this subcontract with company X because the technical team hasn't told me whether they're using them in the solution, you want to get those kind of barriers to progress resolved quickly. So as I mentioned, you're resolving issues quickly. If there's any issue that the proposal manager can't solve, it gets escalated up to the program manager. And the proposal manager is also responsible to make sure they have all the resources they need to get their job done. So, if they're developing their solution and they find out that they need another solution component, you get that process started. There are some people who are just not cut out to be proposal people, and you don't want you to lose a significant opportunity if you don't have the right people in place. The proposal manager is trying to identify anybody who can't do what they're supposed to do and get them replaced. They're managing expenses, because if you overspend your B&P budget, you go into your profit. Sometimes you're not just managing your internal people, sometimes you actually have your subcontractors write part of the proposal, so you've got that outreach to the subcontractor organizations. And then you're doing these quality checks, and we'll talk more about reviews in a second, but the quality checks to ensure consistency. Okay, now we're talking about the program manager, so this is the person that has overall responsibility. They're looking both at internal capabilities as well as external capabilities. When they're looking at internal capabilities, they're looking at all the RFP requirements and all the internal capabilities and seeing if there's a match between the groups. Can you just walk out and see if she's ready for lunch? Please, thank you. And then
She is ready for
If
lunch,
there
yes.
are internal, okay, we'll finish this one. If there are internal organizations that you're going to use, then you will just make sure that you have a meeting of minds with those. When you have a 3-person company, I understand we're not talking service level agreement, but you just need to have a meeting of the minds that everybody knows what they're doing to go after this deal. Because as you grow in government business, you're going to have a small group of people who really understand your government customer. And if they're using other parts of your organization that don't understand your government customer, you don't want these other parts of the organization to mess you up. So you just want to make sure you have a meeting of minds with what's going on there. And then as they look at external capabilities to bring in, these are the components that they're going to buy. They want to make sure they understand these other companies' capabilities, and then they actually have to determine which of the companies they're going to work with. So if you have 2 separate people, one doing marketing and one doing sales, you have to have a handoff between those 2 people when it goes from marketing to sales. If you just have one person, you don't need to worry about that handoff. But basically what has to happen is the marketing person has to share with the proposal team what they know about the customer so that it can get written into the proposal document. The salesperson needs to sell the solution internally. Remember, this isn't the only opportunity you're looking at. You're looking at a bunch of different opportunities, so you want to make sure that you are comparing this solution to, or this proposal effort to other proposal efforts to hopefully push your company to go towards the deal you have a chance of making a commission on. And then you need to work with the program manager to ensure all the solution parts get included. So this is just something to keep in mind when you do have a salesperson or a marketing person. The people who know the most about the customer tend to be this marketing and salesperson. Because they're the ones off playing golf with them, and they're the ones that understand their business and can look at their budgets and everything else to figure out what their needs are. And the writer that you assign to each of the proposal sections probably knows very little about the customer. They've been busy running your operations on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to writing, the writer obviously does the most of the writing, and yet marketing and sales does very little in the writing. So you've got to have an information transfer between what marketing and sales knows about your customer to the people who are actually going to be writing about the solution, so that the writer can demonstrate knowledge of the customer's environment. So that there needs to be an information exchange there. The technical volume leader is responsible for all aspects of the technical solution. They need to recruit people to handle every aspect of the solution. And they need to make sure all the solution components work together. So that may not be particularly applicable in your world, but if you think about information technology, you have to have interoperability between all the solution parts. So that's what I'm talking about there. If you make changes in one area, the entire technical solution needs to understand that that change is being made. And you have to understand, writers have to not only have their blinders on and really know their part of the solution, but they need to also open up and say, how does my solution fit into the grand scheme of things? And you need to push people into new areas. So I introduced this picture last time I was here. You know, a technical person has to be able to work with contracts so that they are able to write the statement of work that goes out to all the subcontractors for their piece of the work. They need to be involved in the pricing to make sure that the solution components that the subs are providing will be able to, that you price them correctly, because subs will try to put more of their products and services in to try to upsell you, and you want to make sure that the technical person is looking and saying, oh no, we don't need this, 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 or this, we only need this piece. So they need to understand the pricing, they need to be able to develop the solution, they need to be able to present typically about the solution, so they might have to present to your senior leadership team about what the solution is. They have to be integrative, in other words, everything has to work together. They have to write about it, they have to be a team player. You know, some of us aren't by nature team players, and that's an issue. They have to do some sales and marketing. So my point is a technical person has to have a willingness to work beyond their boundaries of only being a technical person and do all this other stuff. And it's not just the technical person. I could take the pricing person and put them in here and put technology over here, and the pricing person would have to know all this stuff. So everybody that's on your proposal team, you're pushing them beyond their comfort zone. And, you know, if we use ourselves as an example, sometimes we're very malleable and we're willing to be changed and move in new directions, and sometimes not so much. We want to stay right where we are. And so in those, that's the kind of issue you have on proposal teams. So technical writers use the storyboard and compliance matrix to develop a compliance solution, write about it, demonstrate an understanding of the customer's needs, wants, and desires. You want them to use existing templates and ensure all the requirements are addressed across the entire RFP. So you want the technical person to look beyond just section C. So they need to be guided by section L. That's the proposal structure that the government tells you you have to follow. They have to understand section M because that's how they're going to be evaluated. And they have to address every requirement of section C. And you know, you can, if you know a lot about your competitors, you can highlight your strengths versus your competitors, those two competitors. If you're writing the management volume, you're responsible for getting all components of the management volume developed. Some RFPs don't require management volume at all. Some of them have a whole bunch of different pieces, in which case you typically recruit people to handle each piece. And all of the pieces of your management volume have to be specifically focused to this customer. So how are you going to manage subcontractors for this customer? What resumes are you going to use for this contract? What processes are you going to use on this contract? It's all about this contract. Sometimes you have to put organizational charts in, how you're going to run it. Your past performance all has to be tied back to what's it for this customer. Sometimes you have resumes that you have to put in, and you have to show that you meet all the government requirements for experience. Just like we're effective consumers, where we want to get more bang for our buck, the government wants to get more bang for their buck, so they might say, you know, a person has to have 30 years of experience in this particular technology, and they have to have a master's degree in it, and they want to pay 29 cents for the person. So there's a dichotomy there that you have to work through. If your people aren't compliant during the proposal, you may be deemed non-compliant. So if they're asking for somebody with a bachelor's degree and you only have somebody with an associate's degree, they could kick you out because you're not compliant. Once you're running the contract for them, if you swap out a bachelor's degree person for a non-bachelor's degree person, you might be able to get a waiver from them for that particular requirement and just accept a lower labor rate. So the government has to get something if they're going to give you leniency on the bachelor's degree requirement, but you can do that during contract award. You typically don't get away with it in the proposal phase. Your people, the resumes can come from your prime or your sub, either one. Sometimes you only have to show resume for key personnel. And key personnel are denoted people that the government says. So the government will say the program manager on this contract and the